thank you for tuning into the Short Stacks. I'm Lisa Quintero, Young Adult Librarian.
And I am Nick Barron, patron and sometimes volunteer.
This is a show where we talk to you about what we've been reading, listening to, or watching. But first,
Library news.
So first off, we are open to the public again. We opened on Tuesday of this week. So if you'd like to come in and browse, we are asking people to stay only for an hour and just conduct their library business within that time frame, whether you're using the computers or you're browsing and checking stuff out. We have very limited seating, just like right before we closed in November, just to try and stop the spread of COVID. And we're just, following the things that the health department has told us to do, just like we have been all along. So that is what is going on with us. And then we have several events coming up. On Monday next week, we will have at our Tinker Lab to go. It's going to be a mini wind turbine. Tuesday, we've got Rhyme Time Tuesday in the morning with Miss Heidi. And then we've got the next of our Do Black Lives Matter series. And this one will be covering the devaluation of Black lives in politics and law. And I actually attended the first one this week and I registered for all of them. And it was a very, very good talk, very interesting. Learned a lot of things that we don't learn in school, or at least I didn't learn in school. And I highly recommend attending the next 3 programs if you are able to. And we actually had people attending from like Baltimore, Nebraska, and lots of people from Wisconsin, because they did one of those charts at the beginning where you entered where you were from and people put in where they were from. So lots of people from Wisconsin, but there were people from all over as well. So if you are interested and you don't live in the Sherwood area, you can still tune in and we would welcome you. And then and you just have to register on our website, sherwoodlibrary.org. And if you click on the event for January 26th, it'll have a link to the Zoom where you register. You just have to give you like your name and your email address, and then they'll send you a verification code. Then on Wednesday, the 27th, we have our cart to go. And then on the beginning of February, see what we've got coming up. On the February 2nd, we have the next Do Black Lives Matter event with Reggie Jackson. And that one will be on the devaluation of Black lives in science and medicine, which is something that he touched upon a little bit in this last session. He talked about kind of why a lot of Black folks are a little hesitant about the vaccine and the history of medical testing on Black folks. And he said he will go more into detail with that in the next session on February 2nd. Also on Wednesday, February 3rd, we have Art Cart to go. And on the 3rd, we also have our PM book club. And it looks like they're going to be reading Say Nothing, A True Story of Murder and Memory in Northern Ireland by Patrick Radden-Keefe. And that book discussion will be over Zoom. And so you can go to the events calendar and find the Zoom link there and find a description of the book if that sounds interesting to you. And if you're interested in any of our future book clubs, they are always also on the calendar too, if you want to see what they're reading. And then finally, that first week of February, there will be a story time online at 9 a.m. on Thursday, February 4th. So that's what we've got coming up.
Fantastic. Also,
yeah, I mean, we do have people tuning in from other stuff, which is great. It's awesome. Yes. I think that's really cool. In some ways, all this pandemic stuff has been awful, and in other ways, it has, been cool in how connected it's allowed people to be over things like Zoom. I mean, people are participating in book clubs and things that normally weren't able to participate because we have these digital offerings. People who might have been homebound, might also be able to participate now as well, which is pretty cool. It has its downsides for sure, but
recording this,
but it also has some upsides.
Yeah, for sure. I was just gonna. We're recording this podcast
I'm at work.
over
Nick's
Discord
at his
right
studio.
now.
This is how we're doing things these days because it's a pandemic. All right, so let's go to From the Stacks.
We're going to talk today about, Lisa had mentioned in the last episode, the Make or Break Challenge. Take a break, don't break.
Yeah,
hey.
That's the challenge that I mentioned that I'm doing, that Shannon Downey, challenge. She's a professor and maker, has been doing this month to kind of encourage people to make things.
And the other thing that I was going to say is that Lisa's going to do most of the talking today because she is really good at learning things from books, like how to do things from books.
If
I recall correctly, was it crocheting or knitting that you originally learned from a book? Yeah, exactly. I am a person that pulls up a YouTube video. When I first learned how to tie a tie, pre YouTube, I had to pull up like a picture on the internet that had like a step-by-step guide.
And it's awesome because now, YouTube
showed me how to
there's
tie
so many
a tie.
videos that you can learn things from.
So,
but if you're the kind of person who can learn things from books, there's also a lot of books that you can learn things from.
Exactly, and everybody has different learning styles. So yeah, Lisa, tell us about some of the books and about the Make
Don't Break
Challenge.
I said, the Make Don't Break Challenge is Shannon. She used to be a professor at Columbia College, and she has a project called Rita's Quilt, and is kind of a fiber arts activist. And she is currently like living her life in an RV and touring around the country. But because of the pandemic, her stuff isn't going exactly how she planned, and so she decided to do this virtual challenge and get a lot of her followers to participate. And so the idea is that you make something every day in the month of January just to kind of get through the winter and get through those hard times that a lot of us deal with, especially like in the Midwest and in places where it snows, because we're stuck at home and we can't really do as much. And so and she had looked into it and saw that a lot of people who during the pandemic have been making things have been psychologically more resilient than folks who aren't. And so she decided that this was a good idea, and I've been enjoying it. Like I mentioned, time I've been drawing. I've been last year I started taking some drawing classes, and so one of the books that I've been following along with is I've been teaching myself how to draw with pencils from a book, because in my class I'm doing pastels, but and it's in my class we're doing things on a much larger scale, whereas the drawings that I'm doing at home are on a smaller scale, and they're in pencil. And I also got some books out on how to draw with markers, because I just bought myself a set of micron pens, and so I want to try and learn how to draw with those as well. But yeah, I've always been somebody who easily learned things from books. I learned how to knit from a book probably back in like 2004. I had just graduated from college, and I was living in a town where I didn't know a lot of people, and I just needed something to occupy myself. And I'm left-handed, so like back then YouTube, I don't remember. I don't think, was YouTube a thing in 2004? If it was, I don't remember, but I don't think it was. And I know I was on MySpace.
I was too busy on MySpace.
I don't think YouTube was a thing, and if it was, it wasn't on my radar at least. And so I got some books from, at the time I worked at Barnes & Noble, I got some books from Barnes & Noble and taught myself how to knit. And, the pictures showed very clearly how to knit for a left-handed person. And I'm left-handed, and oftentimes, right-handed people would try to teach me how to do things, but it just didn't, like my brain didn't get it. And so I've often found myself turning to books to be like, okay, this other person who is left-handed has written this out, and I can learn from a left-handed person, and there's not that many of us. So, got to do what you got to do. And so, yeah, that's how I learned how to knit. And then a few years later, I learned how to crochet in the same way. And for some reason, I'm a visual person, but I'm also like a person who can learn from diagrams and just reading. I have some people have a learning style where they can only learn visually. Some people have a learning style that only learn, through listening to things. Some people have a learning style where they only learn by reading. I'm one of those lucky people who can like do all three, and all three work for me. But I do like books because I like to be able to refer back to pictures and things like that. The thing that annoys me about YouTube is like having to rewind and then not getting quite to the spot that I want to be yet, and then having to like fast forward and then having to move around in there. It just annoys me. So like a book, I know what page to go back to, and I just go back to that page. But yeah, so I wanted to talk a little bit about the different kinds of stuff in case you are interested. And one thing that like I know
I just wanted to interject that YouTube was created on February 14th.
There you go. No YouTube.
So
and
yes,
then even
there
then,
was no YouTube when you learned how
there
to.
Weren't that many videos that were like, this is how you do this. But yeah, I lost my train of thought. It's okay. uh,
Sorry.
yeah, so I wanted one thing that I noticed a lot of the people in our circles and people that I've been talking to have been doing during the pandemic is a lot of people are nesting. And so I felt like this episode would be good both for people who are nesting and then also for people who are, looking for things to get through the winter and just want to either learn something new or improve their skills at something. And so the library has a wide variety of things that we offer in terms of books for that. We also have some videos for that. I did not really look that much into videos for this episode, but I know that we do have videos on some various topics. And if we don't have videos here at Shorewood, we definitely have videos in the system. Because Nick asked me before, like, do you have videos on how to like woodwork or videos on how to play the guitar or whatever? And I know that we don't have some of those here, but I know that there are those in the system. So yeah, so some of the books that I've been using personally are I've been making a poncho, which I mentioned on the last episode, out of a book that I got here at the Shorewood Library called 30 Knit Ponchos and Capes by Rita Mason. And it has a variety of different patterns. They're all knitted patterns. And some of them are like little capelets, some of them are longer ponchos. So yeah, if you're looking for pattern books, we have a lot of knitting patterns. We have a lot of crochet patterns. We have a lot of books on how to embroider and embroidery patterns. So any kind of needle art, we've got books here on those. We also have a lot of books on sewing itself. So if you have a sewing machine at home and if you have found yourself wanting to make your home space feel cozier and you want to learn how to make your own pillow covers, like Nick actually wants me to teach him how to make a pillow cover because he's never made one before. And so yes.
I have made one before, but it was
Was that
in
like home ec?
1986.
Yeah. So he wants me to teach him how to do
Yeah.
that. And
So
so,
it's
but
been a
if,
while.
if he didn't have me and he didn't have my sewing machine, he might be able to a book if that was how he learned. He's more of a visual learner. He needed these videos or a person in person teaching him. But if he was a learner like me, he would be able to get books from the library. So here I've got covers for sofas and chairs, and there were a variety of different books. And so what they have is they have information on how to upholster a chair. They've got information on patterns, think ways to like instantly cover up a couch or a chair that don't require sewing, but then also ways that do require sewing. And then they like, break things down like how you do a hem, how you do piping and frills on it, different types of seams, different what kind of fabrics you would want to use depending on what kind of piece of furniture it is. So that's one thing, and that we have a variety of. We also have stuff for garment making. So if you want to try your hand at making your own clothes or making clothes for your kids or whatever, we've got a bunch of different books with patterns, and we also have something that like Martha Stewart's Encyclopedia of Sewing and Fabric Crafts that covers a wide variety of sewing and fabric crafts. So in this book, you'll find like how to make your own lunch bag. You'll find how to make a throw for your couch. You'll find how to make clothing. There's stuff on how to make stuffed animals or stuffed toys for your kids. There's different things on how to make like felt boards and quilts and tablecloths. So all kinds of different handkerchiefs, things to hang on your wall just for decoration. So this book in particular covers the whole gamut of needle crafts, because it's sewing with a sewing machine, but also hand sewing. Like it covers embroidery and things like that. It covers applique, it covers quilting and dyeing and printing on fabrics, and gives you a lot of different projects within the book that you can do. So if you're somebody who's new to a craft, sometimes books like this are really cool because it kind of gives you an overview of what's out there. I know when I first got into needle crafts a little bit more, because I started cross stitching when I was 6 because my mom taught me, but then in my early 20s I got interested in knitting and crocheting, and I remember going to Barnes and Noble and going to the library and checking out books that were like compendiums of needle crafts. And so I learned about all sorts of different needle crafts, like embroidery that wasn't cross stitch and tatting and all these different things that I didn't really know were out there, and that were potential things that I might learn someday. But right now I focused on crochet and knitting, and I've actually started doing some embroidery as well the last few years. But so yes, we go ahead.
that I was gonna say that when you went through the list of projects in that book, it didn't
Oh,
list how to sew
it's
a
no good
patch
to you
onto
because
your
you're a
jean jacket, so
punk
it's
rock
no good.
guy. Um, I'm sure there's a YouTube video on how to do that. And actually, there you go. And
I,
actually,
I
I wouldn't be
I will
surprised if
make that
Martha
YouTube
Stewart did
video.
have that in there. I just was flipping through the book, so applique, that's basically what applique is. Applique is sewing something on top of something else. So like if you're quilting, you might, quilt a little picture of an animal on top of something, or you could sew a patch onto something. So that right there, applique.
All right, that's gonna be the name of our next
If you're not
indie
as into
band,
the fiber
Applique.
arts and you want to do stuff at home to nest like woodworking, or if you're trying to do home projects, we also have a variety of books on that. So like I found this book on the shelf today called Flooring Instant Answers, and so it's all about different types of flooring, how to clean and repair your floors, different maintenance problems, how to lay out your floors, whether you want to replace your floors or repair them. We also, in the woodworking section, had this book called Woodcraft, Master the Art of Green Woodworking with Key Techniques and Inspiring Projects by Barn the Spoon. And this book has everything from how to make your own cutting board to how to make your own captain's chair and your own cooking spoons. And then it has like step-by-step instructions. And then at the end of the book, it also has a guide on different tools that you would need, different hardware that you would need, and kind of some design guides as well if you're trying to design your own pieces. And it also has a section on turning. So if you are interested in making your own chair legs and doing turning and kind of stuff, it has a section on arc work. So if you're doing bowls, knife work. So if you want to do things more like carving. So there's for in the knife work section, he's got like how to make a bangle. He's got how to make a toggle, a bunch of different designs and information, and each one breaks it down as to like what you'll need in terms of materials, what skills you'll learn how to do with this project, and then it has like a design guide and pictures that show you the process of how to go about doing it. And it's actually really cool. Like I've always been curious about working, and we've done a little bit at home, but I've never really like made a thing from wood. And looking at this book, I'm like, I want to
Yeah,
check this book out, and I want to like make one of these things because it looks fun. Um,
yeah. I've as you know, I've made a lot of things from wood, but they've always been very simple things, and it would be nice to make something that was more
yeah,
like I'm
yeah,
an artisan
yeah. And this
than
particular book looks like it's
than
like
a hack.
they're simple things, but like you're with a little bit of artistry thrown in. And so rather than just kind of throwing a bunch of wood together with some screws, it looks like there's a little bit more involved. And yeah, it looks really cool. So we've got a bunch of books on woodcraft. If you are, it's spring is right around the corner. If you're interested in gardening and growing your own vegetables, we have a variety of books on how to lay out your vegetables, whether you want to do container companion planting, um, how you want to design your garden, different types of plants that you can grow in different regions. So yeah, go ahead.
Does, you- does does the library have that book that you read a number of years ago on companion planting? I remember you got a
I
lot
own
of
a couple
really
of books on
great
companion
information
planting,
on
and I
that.
know that we have books on companion planting. I don't know that we have the one I have. I'm gonna look right now. Let's see. The one I have at home is called Carrots Love Tomatoes. We don't have that one here, but it is available in the system. So if people wanted to check that one out, and there are several
Yeah,
other
there you
ones,
go.
and I know we have some here. I just don't know the titles off of the top of my head. And then if you're more into the arts, we also have several books on learning how to draw, on learning how to paint, on learning how to um, play music. So I actually found this one on the shelf today called Music Essentials for Singers and Actors, Fundamentals of Notation, Sight Singing Theory by Andrew Girl, or Gerl. I don't know how you pronounce his last name. It's Gerle. And so this one breaks down how to read music, how to write music, and just basic music theory. And then we also have books on learning how to play the piano, and books on learning how to play, instruments and how to sing as well. And then we also, like I said, I know we have some videos here on that, and I know that there's definitely videos available in the system on that as well. So whether you're a visual learner and you need videos, or whether you're a person who is also a visual learner but also reads by or learns by reading, there are resources here at the library for you, and you don't just have to rely on YouTube. Though YouTube is great. Um,
I, I've got two stories I want to share. When you were talking about the woodworking book, it took me back again to 1986 when I made the pillow, because in middle school, half of the year you had to take
uh-huh.
home ec, and then half of the year you had to take industrial arts.
Yeah.
And we had our industrial arts book, which is basically shop. Um, and the book, every page, there would be a thing that said, Sammy Safety says, and then it would be like, don't put your hand through the saw, that sort of thing. And so when you were going over the woodworking book, it made me think of that. And then the other thing is I just want to throw Lisa under the bus, because earlier at the beginning of the pandemic, I wanted to learn how to play the harmonica riff from the Wizard by Black Sabbath. And Lisa nixed that like a week into the pandemic.
I'm
She's
sorry,
like,
but the harmonica is not my favorite. I mean, you could have practiced when I was at home, but at the beginning, we were both home all the time, and I'm sorry. I mean,
I know.
you lost your
I,
fire.
I, I,
I'm not
I,
home
I
anymore.
lost
You
I
should
lost my
rekindle that
fire.
fire.
I lost my fire for the
Now
Wizard.
you can do it. I'm not there. You won't drive me crazy.
Yeah.
And then finally, if you are interested in cooking and baking or drink mixing, we've got a variety of books on those topics as well. And Nick actually and I have dived into the Instant Pot cookbooks the last couple of weeks, because I think we mentioned in the last episode that we got an Instant Pot for the holidays. And so the one that we used the most in the last couple of weeks is called Instant Pot Asian Pressure Cooker Meals by Patricia Tenumi Harja, I believe is how you pronounce her name. And so far we've made quite a few things out of it. And at first Nick didn't believe me how awesome the Instant Pot was, because I made beans and I was like, it took 20 minutes, and he's like, I don't know, we'll see. And then you can tell him about your first Instant Pot experience.
Well, first off, we cut. I like my vegetables kind of mushy. I'm not a crisp vegetable person for some reason.
I don't like them mushy. I like them in between.
Cooked. Some before Lisa came into my life, I basically caramelized everything that I cooked. But anyways, so we cut up the carrots, and Lisa cut the carrots like really thick, and I was like, "There's no way that this is gonna like, cook these carrots all the way through." And it spends its like 8 minutes pressurizing, and then cooks for 2 to 3 minutes, and all of the carrots were cooked all the way through, and my mind was just I just didn't understand. Uh, but yeah, it's been fun, but it's also kind of like when you have those recipes, or if you watch like the cooking shows on TV, where people are moving really fast because they got to do this thing and that thing and this other thing. A lot of the Instant Pot recipes have been fun, but they work best with two people. So I'm standing there, in some cases holding the book, and giving the instructions. And Lisa's like, "No, you do this," and I'm like, "No, you do that." And it's been a lot of fun, but I still I'm astounded at how it can do everything in one thing, in one pot in many cases, and that
no,
yeah,
and I think you could do it on your own. Like I've thought about it. If I needed to do it on my own and you weren't there, I think I would prep all the vegetables and prep everything first, like all the cutting and all the spices and everything, have everything out, and then I would be able to do everything easily. But yes, exactly.
just like you're on a morning show.
Yeah, so far out of it, we've made aloo gobi, which is an Indian dish that is potatoes and some spices and peas. and we've made Penang curry, and we've made the Lohan mixed vegetables out of it.
I
Oh, the Penang
which I
curry,
may
yeah.
have eaten the leftovers for breakfast this morning.
Yeah, and every recipe's been good so far. I
Yes.
like I've always wanted to learn how to make aloo gobi because it's one of my favorite Indian dishes. Um, but I never knew how, and I learned how to make it. And I can make this all the time now. Aloo gobi's so delicious. Yeah, it's cauliflower, potatoes, and peas. Like those are like three of my favorite
No,
foods.
it's there you go. There you go. Yeah, it's been a fun adventure, and that is something that is, even though there's a lot of things that I prefer to learn by watching videos, cookbooks are the one thing where it's like I need my line by line instructions because I'm not actually watching, looking at diagrams trying to see like how to juliana fry or something, or a potato or something. I'm just reading line by
Mm.
line. You do this, you do this, and I'm very chronological. And so yeah, give
I
me
know
a
sometimes you get
sequence and
mad
I
at me
will follow it.
I like skip steps, and then you're like, no, go back.
Yep. And what happens when you
Sometimes
skip
things turn
steps,
out great, and
Lisa?
sometimes they're a little, but sometimes they're still delicious, even though I skip steps. That's why I'm not like a master baker because I'm
Yeah,
not very good
sometimes.
at the like
That's
I'm okay at it. Like it depends on I have to be in the right headspace to follow the steps exactly in chronological order. I tend to do things where I'm just like, oh, you just, it needs, a quarter cup of flour and a tablespoon of sugar or whatever. And then sometimes you're supposed to sift things and then you add this because food science. But I'm just like, I'm just gonna throw it all in a bowl and mix it all together. And sometimes that works, and sometimes it doesn't work. And I've learned that. I'm like, okay, I
yep.
need to go
And
back step by step.
yep. Yeah, well, it's funny because like, you've had my chocolate chip cookies countless times and they are almost always the same. But it's usually when I do something different, like melting the butter, or the margarine, on the stove instead of letting
Yeah.
it soften naturally and
Yep.
then
Food
and then
science.
whipping it. It changes the texture. Um, yeah, food science. So that is why you follow instructions.
If you had
So
to think of a topic that you wanted to learn about, what would you want to learn about? And I like, yes, you.
me,
I mean, I'd like
I
to know the
wasn't sure
world
if you
too.
were
What people would
sending
like
that
to
out
learn
to the
about,
world.
but yeah, I'm curious about if you had to use the library to learn, what would you pick?
I do like the idea of there are some science things about woodworking that I think would be beneficial to learn from, because there is some science to wood that is different than just like with cooking, um, having to do with like the moisture in the air and all of these things that
Like the
that
texture.
alter um the yeah the ability for the wood to absorb the stain. That was our neighbor, when I was going to stain the porch, like started talking to me about, ah long story short, he was concerned that the moisture in the air was not going to be good for staining the deck.
Hmm.
And yeah, it
Yeah,
was a,
yeah,
a legit
for sure.
concern because that those things affect things.
Cool. So yeah, so if you have any interest in learning
Yep.
things, whether it's a new hobby or you want to nest some more at home, make your home more cozy. Like I said, we've been doing quite a bit of that, and a lot of people have been doing a lot of that. We rearranged our entire kitchen pantry last year and put in some shelves and have been, slowly fixing our place up we installed like a light in our entryway, lots of little things. I mean, when you spend a lot of your time at home because you're not going to work, all of a sudden I want to make home way more comfortable than it is right now. When it's just a place that you go out to like have dinner
Yes.
and sleep, you're just like, yeah, whatever. But when you're like actually there 24/7, you're like, I guess I should make this place feel more comfortable.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I'm glad that we have. Though it's funny because things like the Instapot change our life in also in a nesting sense, because it's like, okay, now we have
Yep.
this thing. Where are we going to put it? Oh, we have to buy something new
Yeah,
to
and
put
we
it
did.
on.
Craigslist is great. So
So I I yeah. I, if
yeah,
if
well now,
if we
if
weren't
you
so
wanted
busy,
to,
I
you
would
could
have
get one of
made
these
something to
books.
put it on. But yeah, no, there's the library has a wealth of books on how to do different things, and
For sure.
yeah, it's a
Next
resource that
episode,
people should
hopefully
tap
we will
into.
be talking about Ready Player 2. Hopefully it's good. And so
Yeah, I do we
no
even know
idea.
what the
I
premise
just
of the second one is? I I I,
that's
I was just like, it's Ready Player Two, and it occurred to me that we've been excited about this since November,
yeah, I have
and
no idea.
we have
I
no
just
idea
saw
what the
Ready Player
storyline
2
is
and that
even
what we
about.
was narrating, and I was like, I'm in. Um, yeah, so we'll find out this weekend because we were probably gonna start it this weekend.
Yep.
And we also want to know if there's any topics in particular, any genres that you listeners would like us to cover. One thing that Nick and I are hoping to do this year is genre dives, where we will assign genres to each other that we might not typically read or watch or listen to. And so just to kind of get an outsider's perspective on something, but we are interested in hearing what kind of genres or what kind of topics you'd like us to dive into as well. So
Yeah, and to give people a greater context of what that means. It's like when I pitched it to Lisa, it's like, okay, here, I'm going to give you a list of like 10 metal records, and just pick out like a few of them and listen to them, and give your perspective on them from the outside, and that way
yeah,
I
but yeah,
figured
I think if
we'll end up getting some
listeners though,
pretty
if they
fun
want to
hot takes.
suggest, you don't have to suggest specific titles of anything. I think you can also be like, I want you guys to talk about romance novels, or I want you guys to talk about
Or jazz.
um, I don't know, science fiction TV shows. Yeah, we haven't delved into our finishing of Star Trek Discovery. That we'll save that for next episode. But
You listeners couldn't see the face that I made
but
on the
yeah, we
other
can
end
talk
because
about that
I've
next
got
episode.
feelings.
But yeah,
Oh,
so if
I've got
there's
so
any kind
many
of like,
feelings.
movie genre, music genre, if you're like, I want, you guys to this kind of music and talk about this, or you want us to suggest titles from certain genres, whether it's science fiction or westerns or spy thrillers or cookbooks or whether it's nonfiction, fiction, whatever. We are want to hear about. So you can email us at shorewoodstacks, and that's stacks spelled out STACKS at gmail.com. Or you can comment on Podbean if you're listening to us through Podbean. And we will try and cover whatever you guys suggest. We are looking forward to hearing what you guys want to listen to. Yeah.
Yeah. Shorewood
Yes.
Public Library
As
worldwide.
always,
We want your
you can
suggestions.
find us on Spotify and iTunes, and we hope you have enjoyed the show. If you have any questions or comments for us, you can also email us at shorewoodstacks@gmail.com, or you can contact us via our social media channels. We are on Facebook and we are on Twitter under the Shorewood Library handle. And thanks for listening, and be well. The Shorewood Stacks was produced by Lisa Quintero and Nick Barron for the Shorewood Public Library. Music for this episode is by Kevin MacLeod and is called Iceflow and can be found at incompetech.com.